Hello, and welcome to the Logistics Management Podcast Series. My name is Jeff Berman. I'm Group News Editor for Logistics Management Magazine and also the Peerless Media Supply Chain Group. Today, it's a real pleasure for us to welcome Abe Eshkenazi to our podcast. Abe serves as CEO of the Association for Supply Chain Management, otherwise known as ASCM. Abe, during his tenure as CEO, ASCM has significantly expanded its services to corporations, individuals, and communities. Its revenue has more than doubled, and it has successfully completed 3 mergers in response to both heightened industry awareness and the vast and ongoing global impact driven by supply chains. Previously, Abe was the managing director of the Operations Consulting Group of American Express Tax and Business Services. He holds an MBA in management from Northwestern University, Kellogg Graduate School of Management, and also an MBA in finance from DePaul University and a bachelor's degree from Northeastern Illinois University. Abe, welcome to our podcast.
Pleasure to be here, Jeff.
Absolutely. It's great to have you. So, Abe, for those listening in that perhaps are not familiar with ASAM, could you just start off and please just give us sort of a brief overview of the organization in terms of sort of your mission, your objectives, and also the types of members that you guys have?
Absolutely. And when we're talking about membership and the organization, I think maybe some of the individuals remember APEX, our former name, before we changed it to the Association for Supply Chain Management, to really recognize that it was more than inventory and controls. So the organization has gone through transformation, as almost every supply chain has. Our organization is comprised of 50,000 members across the globe in almost every facet of the supply chain, from the planning, the coordination, logistics, the make, the buy, the warehousing, all aspects of it. Our focus is on, first was on the supply chain professional competency, awareness, recognition, providing career pathways for those individuals that wanted a job within the supply chain industry. We offer industry-leading certifications for individuals. There are a number of them on our website, as well as the SCORE framework. That's a framework for over 5,000 companies that have used that to model and align their supply chains. As you indicated, we started off with a focus on the individual, making sure that they were prepared for the job. Since then, we've migrated and engaged the corporation as a strategic imperative, obviously with the transformation that supply chains have gone through. And our focus now includes the impact to the consumer, the patient, the economy, and the ecology, as well as the individual and the organization. So we've really expanded the scope of the supply chain focus to almost every aspect of our lives in terms of product, in terms of raw materials, and in terms of logistics.
Okay, that's terrific. So for the purposes of our conversation, Abe, we can go in a few different directions, but sort of with the theme of things to look out for in 2025, what might be coming around the corner, if you will. And obviously, given what's been going on within the supply chain, a global supply chain, for that matter, especially going back, say, the last 4 or 5 years, there's been very few dull moments, to say the least. But one thing that's definitely top of mind for a lot of industry stakeholders, and I'm sure your membership, is simply artificial intelligence and also other emerging technologies. Or when we look at AI, Abe, how do you sort of view where it is and where things may be going? How does ASCM view it?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I think, to your point, this really is a continuation of the past 3 to 4 to 5 years of disruption and realignment. Not only from the pandemic, but we were living in a very, efficient system prior to the pandemic. Just in time was almost the hallmark of every organization. Reasonable prices, rapid delivery, significantly, options in terms of the product and the availability of it. The past 3 to 4 years have really been a focus on the disruption and getting back to where we were. And a lot of organizations are still trying to get back to where we were. The focus now is on resiliency and agility, and that is responding to any disruption that is occurring in the marketplace, as well as the agility to take advantage of those disruptions in the marketplace. As you indicated, Jeff, the focus on AI and other emerging technologies to help shape supply chain is critical right now. AI plays a crucial role in enhancing supply chain resiliency and adaptability, not only by enabling more proactive and agile responses, but identifying and accumulating the vast amounts of data that we rely on to forecast and to ensure that we're, optimizing our organizations through, logistics and warehousing activities. Today, digital transformation is at the key for almost every organization. In our top 10 trends, artificial intelligence is the number one trend that we're coming into the year with, followed by big data and analytics. There are very few organizations that are not finding ways to enhance their supply chain through AI, because a lot of it is because of the gaps that we identified through the pandemic, from visibility to transparency to traceability. Technology has a huge role in addressing those gaps.
Okay, that's a great overview. Thanks for that. And you had alluded to big data and analytics, Abe, and it's certainly no shortage of big data within the supply chain, especially in recent years, in terms of how it can be a competitive advantage, but also in the sense that there was a data issue. It seems like over the years there's been a data issue too, with people saying, "Gosh, we have all this data. How can we effectively use it?" But I feel like the corner's turning on that. It has been for a while. How do you guys sort of view the emergence of big data and analytics as we head into next year?
I think it's critical, Jeff. I think the investment right now in terms of getting accurate, relevant, and timely data can't be understated or overstated here. Data is gold in the marketplace for supply chain professionals. In our, desire to balance the, our supply, the demand signals in the marketplace, AI enables, as well as big data, enables us to be, at least more informed about the information that we have to account for, but also to be able to recover more quickly from the disruptions and the unexpected events. The adaptability helps us reduce downtime, financial losses, and more importantly, maintain customer trust in what we do as an organization. Some of the things that we're seeing, how organizations are using this, is predictive analytics right at the top, modeling historical and real-time data to protect or to predict the potential disruptions that we have in the marketplace.
Hmm.
Very difficult for an individual to accumulate that kind of data. The next would be demand sensing and forecasting. I mean, this is the holy grail of almost any supply chain, is ensuring that you have accurate, relevant demand signals so that you can forecast appropriately about the market trends, social media, global news in real time, and make adjustments in your forecast real time. I think what we've all seen over the past 3 to 4 years is that our planning horizons have shrunk considerably because of the disruptions. And so while we're short, while we're predicting in much tighter timeframes, the volatility is still creating significant disruptions for our supply chain professionals.
Okay, understood. Um, and then when we look at things like excuse me, global trade dynamics and geopolitical policies, Abe, there's a lot to uncover there, especially with the new administration coming in and a lot of talk of uh, tariffs, to varying degrees. I mean, we don't need to have an inside baseball tariff talk here, but on a top level, how do you sort of view the global trade outlook coupled with geopolitical policy outlook as we look ahead to the changing of the calendar in a few months?
Yeah, I think that's been one of the things that organizations have been evaluating over the past year to 2 years. I don't think anybody has been waiting until the election results and said, okay, now we need to see what the impact is.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think most organizations have done their scenario planning and their forecasting. I think what, is challenging a lot of our supply chain professionals and companies right now is the actions versus rhetoric. A lot of the rhetoric prior to the election, may have been for media or may have been for, other purposes than actual impact. I mean, there was discussion of 60% tariffs on, the Chinese goods. Is that realistic? And I think that's what a lot of, us and the organizations are trying to discern. What does, the geopolitical landscape look like, and what does global trade look like? As we start to take a look and navigate, through the new administration, we're sensing or we're looking for signals in terms of how this is going to play out in real time. Obviously, there are things that can be done for organizations. They're moving freight a little bit further forward. We're seeing supplier diversification. Obviously, scenario and contingency planning is still a critical component of organizations planning, but we're seeing much higher inventory, more safety stock, as well as redundant operations, which includes nearshoring and reshoring. So there are a lot of activities that organizations can take and have taken already. So I'm not seeing a significant change, maybe an acceleration of some of the activities that we've seen before in diversifying your supplier base, or ensuring that you have redundant operations, that if one facility goes down, that you have the ability to withstand that disruption. These are, again, part and parcel of the scenario and contingency plans that organizations should have and continue to evolve.
Yeah. I mean, is it fair to say that that organizations or shippers or whoever you want to call it, industry stakeholders, that they are getting better at those processes and have been over time, or is it still kind of more of a work in progress?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think first, we are getting better at it because we are getting better data and we're able to filter that data appropriately. But I think we also have a challenge in terms of the integrity of the systems and how far we can see into our supply chains. One of the comments, or one of the discussion points that we had before, was the gap among the gaps that we identified during the pandemic on visibility, not knowing who or what is in our supply chains. So over the past 3 to 4 years, supply chain professionals and companies worked really hard to identify all the players and activities in their supply chain. So as we sit here today, I'm not sure that there's a supply chain professional that can go into the C-suite and say, I don't know who or what is in my supply chain. So that's good news. We should know everybody and everything in our supply chain. Now the bad news, we now know everything and everybody in our supply chain.
Right,
What
right.
we're finding out is that we may not be as safe in terms of cybersecurity. We may not be as efficient in terms of our supplies, and we may not be as sustainable as we had anticipated to be or predicted to be based on the relationships. Quite a bit of work to do now that we know what and who is in our supply chains.
Okay, got it, got it. And separate but related, just sort of it's not renewed at this point because it's pretty well established, especially over the last year or two. Just the focus on nearshoring or reshoring, whatever people want to call it, friendshoring, etc. Um, if it hasn't been on industry stakeholders' radars in the past, it certainly is now, right? And I'm just wondering how you guys at ASCM view the current state of nearshoring and where it may be headed. Obviously, the impact of tariffs could go a long way in determining things from a strategy perspective for shippers, for example.
No, absolutely. And I think this is a continuation of an evaluation of our domestic supply chains as well as our global supply chains. We are seeing quite a bit of focus on supplier as well as operational diversification. The China Plus One strategy has been in play for a number of years now. This is not new. So what we're seeing is the focus on ensuring that organizations are resilient, irrespective of the current situations, whether we're looking at hurricanes or economic downturns or labor strikes. Organizations have to be, operational irrespective of it. So the China Plus One strategy obviously is focused on de-risking our focus on China. But I think we also have to step back a second and say, well, wait a second, just nearshoring or reshoring a manufacturing facility, does that in and of itself solve the problem? I think a good example is what we're seeing right now in Phoenix with TSMC and the chip factory over there.
Mm-hmm.
The ecosystem necessary to support that is years in the making. It is not something that you could just flip the switch and have trained employees and the necessary support structure. So as we sit here today, as they're building out TSMC, they're bringing in workers from Taiwan because we don't have trained individuals today. So nearshoring and reshoring is one aspect of it, but the issue necessary to support those activities needs to also be, approached. The last issue is ensuring that we have competent, capable employees. And too often we wait until the last minute to focus on the talent side. We need a commensurate investment in talent as we do with technology today to ensure you have the right individuals with the right skills to understand the information and the leverage the technology that you've invested in.
Absolutely. I mean, the impact of labor in terms of a company's overall operational throughput and success rate, or however one defines it, that can't be understated. Do you think if in say a year or two and the tariffs are all kicked in and we are seeing a more renewed or an ongoing focus on the domestic supply chain, that labor will continue or will be at a even higher premium than it is now, simply because of increased job availability and increased requirements for certain skill sets?
Absolutely, Jeff. I think there is as we indicated before, an entire ecosystem that needs to support this, reshoring. Whether we're talking about EV batteries or whether we're talking about chips, there is a need for competent, trained individuals, as well as individuals who understand the technology that's being invested in. Organizations are making significant investments in their technology, whether through AI, machine learning, but we need to ensure that we have individuals that are competent and can understand the data that is going in there right now. There are a number of studies that were done in terms of the talent coming out of colleges right now and where we're overweighted and where we're underweighted. We
Hmm.
are overweighted in technology and analytics. The systems are much more powerful than we're using them right now, and we're only scratching the surface in terms of the integration of technology. So that's a very positive aspect of it, that there is some runway there. On the downside is that the individuals coming into the workforce don't have critical thinking or problem-solving skills. If you marry those two data points together, you got technology that's much more powerful and individuals who don't understand the data coming in or out. That's not a good combination. We
Yeah.
need to ensure that we have individuals that can understand information, use their experience, use their education appropriately to help organizations not only leverage the data, but make much more informed decisions.
Okay, got it, got it. And that's an interesting segue to sort of how you sort of view, Abe, the evolution of the supply chain workforce. I mean, it's kind of something, it's kind of like the tide, right? It sort of never stops. There might be some ebb and flows, but without a good workforce, I mean, it makes everything else kind of hard to function and operate. How are things progressing on that point in terms of the evolution of it all?
I think we're seeing a couple of things. First, I think the awareness of supply chain is significant because, 5 years ago, individuals in supply chain, if they explained to their friends and their family that they worked in supply chain, they'd get this quizzical look like, what do you supply? And so that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first good news, is that we don't have to explain to our friends and our family what supply chain is. There may not be a deep understanding of it, but at least there's an awareness of the term supply chain. So
Sure.
individuals are now looking for this as a career opportunity. A data point here, around 2000, we maybe had 12 programs in the world that had a baccalaureate or a master's degree in supply chain. As we sit here today, there are over 700 schools that are offering baccalaureate or master's degree. Obviously, a recognition of the talent demand that's in the industry. As we do that, we need to ensure that the foundational content that we're providing them, is matching what the companies are looking for. And I think this is one of the areas that we'd like to see a little bit more alignment with academics, as well as our organization or other organizations that provide advanced training and content. We need to align our work with the academic institutions so that organizations are getting the talent at the right level. While it's a benefit to us that individuals may not be as prepared coming into the workforce because they'll come to us for our certification, I'd like to see a little bit more focus on the fundamentals of content and supply chain in the schools right now. But the demand right now, Jeff, is so high for supply chain professionals. Individuals coming in the industry right now, they're getting multiple job offers when they graduate. Salaries are second only to engineers in the marketplace. And our salary satisfaction survey and the job satisfaction survey indicates that people are staying on the job. Over 85% indicate that they're satisfied and are going to stay with their companies. That's a significant impact or commitment that these individuals have to their companies and to the industries. We got to get them in, we got to retain them, and we got to continue to develop them. And too often we see an investment in technology not matched with the investment in talent. Jeff, if we asked any company what's their number one asset, I think most of them would tell us their people. Well, invest in your number one asset, as you indicate it is the critical component in your organization.
Absolutely, and you guys are obviously helping to lead that charge with all the different supply chain certifications that you guys offer, the career development opportunities. How long has that been a core focus for ASCM, Abe? And what's cooking on that front that maybe you could share with our audience?
The focus on, you know, the talent side does not stop. As you indicated before, we're continuing to develop our certifications. Last year, we introduced a new certification, Certified in Supply Chain Transformation, as we're recognizing that the skills for individuals right now in supply chain have grown exponentially. 3 to 5 years ago, they did not have cybersecurity as part of their responsibilities. Now that is a critical part of the supply chain in terms of ensuring that you have, you know, strong access control and internal protocols and audits for your systems. The investment in technology that organizations are making is creating tremendous risk on cybersecurity and ransomware challenges. Organizations, through data integration and security protocols, they're vulnerable right now. And now supply chain professionals, they used to be problem solvers. Now, in addition to the problem solving, they're coordinating and collaborating with your chief compliance officer, with your chief financial officer, as well as your chief marketing officer. The collaboration necessary is critical right now. For years, Jeff, we've advocated for supply chain professionals to have a seat at the C-suite, to be recognized for the contributions they make to their organizations. We finally have that. Now we need supply chain professionals to use their voice as an advocate for educating employees and ensuring that you have a trustworthy and a competent and capable workforce to affect your strategies.
Okay, that's great. And something when we had been touching upon technology earlier, Abe, I forgot to ask about cybersecurity within the supply chain. There's been obviously there's been some carriers that have been, compromised may not be the right word, but they were hacked. Systems were down. It's happened to big name companies. It's happened to smaller name companies. Either way, it's an issue and a big challenge. And it impacts operations, it impacts relationships, etc. How do you sort of view the current state of cybersecurity as it relates to the supply chain?
Yeah, I think it's growing in its impact and in its the challenges that organizations are facing. As we indicated before, one of the gaps that we identified in the, during the pandemic was visibility. Well, in order to close that visibility and transparency gap, you need technology. It's very difficult to pick up the phone and understand what's going on with all your suppliers and all your, the different vendors across the globe. So technology plays a strong role in ensuring that you're getting that relevant data. Most of the disruptions that occurred were in the tier 2 and tier 3 for organizations, not their tier 1, which more than likely were highly financed, significantly more sophisticated in terms of their talent management. Whereas when you go to tier 2 and tier 3, predominantly small and medium-sized organizations, that may not have the same security protocols or the monitoring system or audits that the larger organizations do. Well, as we're investing in our technology and we're connecting all the players within our supply chains, we're now exposing our supply chains to even more security risks than we had before. So incumbent upon organizations is, as these threats increase, there are things that organizations can do to protect and to mitigate or minimize that disruption. Obviously, strengthening your identity management and for the individuals. Educating your employees and your partners, data integration and security protocols. But one of the things that is really, key to all of this is trust. You need to have trust within your supply chain and all your partners to ensure that you're getting accurate, relevant, and timely data. We don't make it easy to, to develop that trust for the consumer in terms of what and is in their supply chain and how the product got there. We have that data. Now we need to ensure that we're using that data appropriately to protect the systems and ensure that we do have operational resilience. But again, this is a key aspect of supply chain professionals' jobs today, is ensuring, cybersecurity, not only protection, but in ensuring that organizations can be up and operating if in fact a disruption occurs.
Okay. All right. Understood. Look, Abe, this brings us to the end of our allotted time for today's podcast. So, on behalf of Logistics Management Magazine and also the Peerless Media Supply Chain Group, I'd like to offer up a big thank you for spending some time with us today.
My pleasure, Jeff. Always a treat.
Yeah, no, I look forward to having you back on again down the road too. It was great. For those in the audience who'd like to learn a little bit more about ASCM, just go ahead and check out the website. It's easy enough, ascm.org. And if you want to reach out and connect with Abe on LinkedIn, he is there on LinkedIn. Abe Eshkenazi, Eshkenazi. And also, please feel free to give us at Logistics Management a follow on Twitter, simply at Logistics MGMT. And for those of you that are not signed up or subscribed to our podcast, please just go ahead and look for Supply Chain 24/7 wherever you get your podcast, and it will pop right up. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.